Welcome to Comic Wars. Think of the show as Fight Night, but without the mess of actual combat. The data will speak for itself before the outcome, but in case it doesn't, we will break all of it down in the outcome at the end of the show. Without further ado, let's get into the overview. As usual, as we start our show, if we had a guess, this is where the intros would be. This is where we would have a little bit of banter and guessing going on as to who wins this comic war. After that, we get into the background details. This is where we cover maybe they have a real name. If they had a secret identity, this is where we reveal their identity. This is where we go over any kind of details such as age, height, weight, their occupation. Sometimes that does come up as something that is kind of a feat in itself. Be able to go and complete a specific type of job on a daily basis can be a big deal in some combat scenarios. For instance, if somebody is a part-time fighter or they're a full-time fighter versus somebody who has little to no fighting experience, that might play a huge factor. All right, after that, then we would get into their personality. Sometimes personality can come up as a weakness almost at times, or a way that their opponent could be able to play against them in a way that it confuses them, or it throws them through a bit of a stressful type of scenario to the point where maybe they start fudging around and they can't make good choices. It happens. After that, then we would get into any miscellaneous information, just little fun little facts to go and have about them. All right, so for tonight's first combatant, we have Extremely Conservative Woman. She's from Mythos Imprint Lore, which is by Ilya King. And her real name is Camilla Pettygrove. We're not really sure on a few things here, like her age and her weight. However, we know just like in general, when it comes down to characters from the Totally Naked Man universe or other parts of Ilya King's work, height and weight, things like this, they all vary. There's some inconsistencies when it comes to drawing characters around the same height and things like this. So if a character is supposed to be 5'5", sometimes they appear like they're 6'5". This does occur. So could this play into advantage? Technically speaking, it could. This could be just how his universe works. Everybody kind of their heights and builds and all this, they shift. It's not consistent. Now we see this does occur through artwork, that sometimes you're not able to go and maintain the same level of consistency, if you will. But this is one of those comics where the character heights, builds, and all this, they become very, very inconsistent. Sometimes they might be a very, very big character, and other times they are a very, very small character. Just how it works. As for personality, as for occupation, she's a costume heroine. Now, characters in the Naked Verse generally don't go off the term of vigilante. I believe there's only one character, maybe, and that would be the Anti-Man character from the Naked Verse, but he's also considered like a costume detective vigilante hero or something like this. This is a really long, convoluted title, but most of them you'll see printed as a costume hero or heroine. As for her areas of operation, primarily in the Rose City area, is just along with Totally Naked Man, Zeta Man, and Anti-Man. This is where they primarily do their crime fighting. However, she has, just along with Totally Naked Man, have gone down to Cherry City, which is down south, is the equivalent of Salem, Oregon. And she also trains up in Vantucky, so could it be possible she stops crime up in Vantucky? Probably. So we're looking more around the Rose City metro area, if you will. As for her personality, she's very quick to anger, and she greatly disapproves of idiots, and she's incredibly judgmental. I think this is supposed to be kind of like a play on like typical kind of a Karen archetype, if you will. This is basically how she kind of fits. But she's one of those characters that she's not real. Like, she was almost basically a foe of Totally Naked Man initially, and that was back in early 2000s, late 90s, I believe it was, when Ilya King first did his Totally Naked Man character with Tales from Muscle Bound Heroes, I believe is what it was called. And she was actually seen as almost a foe to Totally Naked Man, as she did not appreciate him going around the cities naked. But she does make several cracks at the fact that he is naked all the time. It's very, very consistent and not in a very conservative manner, if you will. But as for some miscellaneous information, well, her brother is the leader of a clown-themed gang in Cherry City. Once again, the Salem equivalent. And she's a member of the new Alternates, along with Totally Naked Man, Zeta Man, and Anti-Man. So, some of these things will definitely carry over into some things as to some feats. I'll break that down in a second. For some feats here, so her strength. Basically, this is going to be the only, like, the real big, huge feat that she's got. She's strong enough to uppercut Ocular, who is a muscle-bound hipster villain, one of the quote-unquote mutants. And she was able to just uppercut him with one arm, just bam, over the ropes of the wrestling ring, where they was heroes versus villains in an all-out wrestling match to see who's going to stay in the city and who's going to leave. And she was able to do that, just one uppercut, just bam, knocking him straight over the ring, or the ropes. She's also strong enough to easily lift Totally Naked Man, who is anywhere between 200 and 250 pounds. Once again, he varies in size, but he's that muscle bound. So the fact she was able to one-arm uppercut somebody that's probably anywhere between 170 and 200 pounds, just with one arm, up and over, that shows pretty great amount of strength here. As for durability, well, she's just going to be your average human female. She only has clothing as her suit is what it's going to be. So really, there's no real durability she's got. As for speed and agility, same thing, average human female. So you're not looking at somebody that's very agile, very fast. She's not dodging a whole lot. She doesn't have any big speed feats. She's not able to chase certain people down and all this. As for her combat capabilities, well, she's a Krav Maga student. And she's also the one that none of the new alternates want to spar against. They feel she is too... It's debatable whether she's more powerful than all of them or not, but she has been shown to four-shot Totally Naked Man, and in some cases even one-shot him. But we know that when it comes to combat, it would be between her and Anti-Man that would really be the big seal in the deal there, unless Totally Naked Man was able to get off the whole horseless horse. But that's literally his only strength against anything. As for gadgets, well, she comes equipped with at least a rope, but she does swing around on this very often, so a rope by itself is not going to be enough to be able to do it. She's going to actually have to have a grappling hook to make it usable. But that is how she gets around the city and the rooftops. As for her opponent, we have Batwoman, whose real name is Catherine or Kate Kane. She's roughly about 32 years old as of this year. She's around 5'11 or so. She's 140 pounds. She's a vigilante, socialite, and businesswoman, all three of those throughout the entire day, every day. She has fought crime during the day, but more often than not, it's at night, all that. But she's generally doing the socialite scene or working for her business. So her area of operation, she has solved and taken down some villains in Atlanta, Georgia. But she has been known as her primary area is going to be Gotham City, along with Batwoman and the rest of the Bat family. As for her personality, she's determined, dedicated, level-headed, and depressed. Now, this is the part where it becomes a little interesting. Now we're dealing with some mental illness here. Does this play a factor? Well, her depression, it is kind of incapacitating at times. So it's actually one of her weaknesses, if you will. Surprisingly, we're going to get into her big weakness, which is really weird because it's technically could be considered anybody's weakness, as something that could be considered a weakness or an annoyance. But she's level-headed, determined, dedicated at her best, and when she's at her lowest, she is very depressed. However, even when she's very depressed, she doesn't lean towards any of like the really, really dangerous stuff. She's just really down on herself and tends to kind of get mopey and things like this, but nothing really too serious. Some miscellaneous information about her. Well, she's the cousin of Bruce Wayne, who's also known as Batman. We'll get in more into the Batman stuff here in a second, though. So just some interesting little tidbits there. As for her feats, well, she is strong enough for just her feet alone in strength and durability and speed is outstanding. She can punch through stone statues in a single punch. She's also capable of staggering both Bane and Killer Croc. And she can also throw and kick large objects several feet away from their initial location. So, just to break a few things here. Breaking through stone statues like that takes an immense amount of strength and precision strikes. Now, she's able to do it in one punch, though precision strikes, it's no longer precision strikes, it's hitting it with one punch. Now, we're not sure if she's hitting the strong part of the statue or a weaker point. We don't know. There's no real big information on that. However, punching through stone is quite the feat itself. But she's also capable of staggering both Bane and Killer Croc, which are well over 250 pounds. And when you look at Bane and Killer Croc, these are beings that tank other literally superhuman strength type characters, can tank their hits like they're nothing. Both Bane and Killer Croc have shown extreme bullet resistance, if not bullet immunity. Killer Croc is literally bulletproof due to his scales, and his mutation has made it so he's also got a healing factor. Well, she's able to stagger this guy. Now, this guy was able to take hits from General Zod, who is a Kryptonian just like Superman. She's able to stagger Killer Croc, who can also deal damaging blows that General Zod is injured from. So take that as you will. That's pretty strong. As for her durability, she's tanked full force blows from Bane and Killer Croc and only received cuts and bruises. Now, this is an interesting one because we're talking face shots, okay? Her suit doesn't provide that much protection. It provides some, but not to this extreme. Bane and Killer Croc have been known to tear through buildings, lift cars over their head. Killer Croc is considered even stronger than Bane, as he can literally lift a bus. And Batman's also his head, and he can also eat the children that are in the bus as well. Yummy, right? Ugh. Yeah, but that's the problem with Killer Croc. He's also cannibal. But besides the point, she's been able to tank hits that literally, these are guys that throw buildings. They hurt Kryptonians. She's tanking hits from them with little to no damage. There's something more going on here, but this comes down to, this is where DC's inconsistency it falls under. This is the inconsistency of DC. Keep that in mind. Marvel does the same thing, where they're heroes and heroines and their villains and all this, they're able to just tank hits which they normally would be killed from. This shows the inconsistency here, but for clarity's sake, she has done this. She's also survived being stabbed in the heart, and she also quickly got off painkillers. And within a month or so, she went back home. Stabbed in the heart, and that's insane. She's also capable of shrugging off several bladed weapon wounds. So slice and dicers, like guys like Zaz, they were to get up and close and personal and just start cutting her up and all this. She would just shrug it off like it's not a big deal. On top of that, like Batman, she's also got a very, very strong mental fortitude to fight off psychic attacks. Not that Extremely Conservative Woman is a psychic, but just in case, she's got that kind of fortitude. So even a psychic, any kind of psychokinesis, telekinetic, or telepathic, they're not going to be able to do crap to her up in her head. So just to say, that's quite the feat in itself. So durability-wise, she's got quite a bit of that. As for speed and agility, now this is according to Batman, so making this very, very clear here. But he has said that she has the reaction time of about 50 milliseconds, which keep in mind that is about 6 to 8 times faster than a human eye can blink. It's really fast. Now, if you think about how fast you blink, she moves 6 to 8 times faster than that, depending on how you look at it. And it's closer to about 7.5 or so times faster than the human eye can blink. But everybody's different, right? But she's also a senior elite level gymnast. Now she's up there with the likes of Nightwing, who's considered one of the best gymnasts and acrobatics in the DC universe. Him, the Creeper, all the Robins are all very, very acrobatic, Batman included. But she's considered better than a lot of them. But Nightwing would be the one that she would be slightly worse, but not by much. But she does have more than just these feats. We haven't even gotten into her martial arts yet. That's where we get the combat capabilities. So she's trained in modern army combatives, okay? And that's just a term I just learned. But basically it's a mix of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Eskrima, and wrestling. So some stick fighting and things like this. But it combines these things, right? And she was able to learn this while she was going to West Point. Okay, now if those that are familiar with West Point, that is the military school. It's a very, very prestigious military school with the likes of even former President Donald Trump. They went and they got their education there as well. So this is a pretty interesting little thing they do. They train in all sorts of different things there, and that's one of them they trained in. She also trained in boxing in both orthodox and southpaw, so she can fight in either stance, no problem. And she trained in Krav Maga, karate, Muay Thai, stick fighting, some more Eskrima-like fighting, but it's far more advanced than that, Taekwondo, and Wing Chun. She's also a throwing weapon master, and she's also an expert marksman. Now, this is the difference between her and Batman, is Batman does not, he refuses to use guns, while Batwoman does not. As for ingenuity, now this is where her stealth comes into play, and her surveillance techniques. She's stealthy enough to ambush Batman, who is essentially the king of ambushing and stealth tactics, and this is a guy who can sneak up literally on Superman. How do you sneak up on somebody that can hear air molecules basically bounce against each other? Well, she can sneak up on a guy who can do that. That's insane. Well, who can sneak up on a guy who can do that? That's what I mean to say. But she's also infiltrated an airborne military airship while it was in the air. Okay, keep this in mind. Without being detected, and subdued 3 soldiers before choosing to make her own presence known. She made the choice. She could have kept going, and nobody would have known any better. Jeez. She's also stealthy enough to avoid detection while figuring out guard patrol routes during a mission. And she has a limited sense of strong electromagnetic fields due to the gold stitches in her head, which she had a head wound and they just stitched up with gold stitching. So that's intense. Oh, it gets better. Or worse, depending on how you want to look at it. Her gadgets. So she comes with a grapple gun, just like the standard Bat family gadgetry. The batarangs. A fear toxin. Now, this is an interesting one. This fear toxin itself is something that Scarecrow used. And he uses this for interrogation. He uses this for all sorts of things. But she uses this almost entirely for interrogation, because then her presence itself becomes even more terrifying. It makes sense when you see her villains, too. They're all pretty much occulty and supernatural. She also comes equipped with a cryobaton. I have not found a whole lot of data on the cryobaton. I'm sure there's a reason it's called the cryobaton, but it's like a battle staff, if you will. So she has that. And then she also comes equipped with flamethrower gloves and taser gloves. And she comes with standard smoke pellets to, once again, just to keep her getting back in and out of stealthy positions. And she's got a really, really interesting thing here. Much like Wonder Woman's got a lasso, well, so does Batwoman. It's called the Python Coil. And it's a lasso weapon that constricts and cuts into a victim the more they struggle. That's Terrifying. So, what do you guys think? Are we looking more at Batwoman, or are we looking more at Extremely Conservative Woman? Now, don't worry. We're going to break this down a little bit. We don't have to get into the super high level details about every single thing because, well, these are the initial matches. Oh, and just in case you guys didn't understand that, these are just the first rounds. And this is also a single elimination, which means those winners of the first rounds, they'll be coming back in round 2. This is one of the last rounds. We got 2 more rounds in round 1, or matches in round 1, and then we're going to go on to round 2, which then we're going to be pitting characters against each other. So, before people are wondering, well, why are some of these matchups kind of bad? Well, they're supposed to look interesting at first, and that's the thing. And initially, there was supposed to be more to this one here. So, we'll get into this in a bit, but let's break some things down first. So we're looking at data analysis. So let's take a look real quick at, first, Extremely Conservative Woman. She's going to have some varying height. Now this is also going to change her reach, okay? Because Ilya is consistent with that when he draws the human body or these characters' bodies. He keeps them, usually they're pretty consistent on their anatomic look, if you will. It's just their heights change. Now, Extremely Conservative Woman is going to remain anatomically correct, which means her reach is going to increase. So, and it varies from issue to issue, panel to panel, really, in all honesty. So, could this play as a factor? Yes. This is going to be a big factor for her because if you've got ever-changing height, arm length and reach and all this, this plays into a factor here because now you've got, maybe your punches are going to be kind of extended as you're punching. So there's that. But she's also quick to anger and she gets incredibly judgmental and all this. So typical Karen type of character. This is what we're looking at here. Okay. So she's going to be quick to anger. That's the big thing we want to go and take note on this one. Okay. As for some other things, well, her strength. She's got a really strong uppercut, and she can lift pretty decent amount of weight. So she's got some strength, but we don't really have anything other than that. Her durability, she's gonna lose on that no matter what. And on our speed and agility, she's gonna lose because now she doesn't compete. But her strength is one that's interesting. Her strength, it's enough that she can do some damage. However, her strength is not going to be anywhere close to what's needed to actually take out Batwoman. So just in a standard fight, well, get a Krav Maga student versus somebody who is taught Krav Maga. There's a fuller extent there. If you're taught, right, the way that family is taught, they go through, usually it's months if not years of training, but she's got multiple. Well, Extremely Conservative Woman has one style of fighting, that's Krav Maga. She's a student. Then we have to consider how long she's been in the comics with Ilya. So we're looking back late 90s, early 2000s. So we're looking anywhere between, we'll say 24 years at tops, probably. Even if we go all the way back to 1993, we can give him all that if we want. 24 years or whatever, she is not a master of Krav. We know this because the techniques shown are not highest tier. They're just pretty basic. No, so she's only doing some pretty basic stuff here. we have to take that in consideration. So she's one of the more skilled fighters in the Nakedverse out of the superheroes, right? But even then, you've got guys like Anti-Man that have shown more capability in a fight. You've seen Totally Naked Man been in more fights. But you've also seen that she's one-shotting people too. So she has a strong enough punch she can one-shot people. if you look how she's hitting them, it's an area where it's pretty easy to knock somebody out, relatively. Just because of how the pain goes up and it shoots the skull and all this, yeah, it's pretty easy to knock somebody out that way. But we can't really determine much more than that. Like, her fists are somewhat durable. Once again, does this compare to Bane or Killer Croc? Not even close. Okay. So, her feats aren't going to compare at all. So what about her gadgets? Well, she comes equipped with grappling hook, potentially grappling hook, and rope. You'd assume grappling hook just because of the way she gets around. But that's just for her, that's a means of transport for her. Even if she were to use it as a weapon, Batwoman's also got a grapple gun. They've got the same thing. But the grapple gun's going to be far more accurate. So she loses out on that one too. So she doesn't have a single feat that's going to be able to go and really do anything. You can already see where this goes. But let's break this down. Batwoman's biggest weakness is going to be her depression here. She's got another weakness, which is low-level drug immunity. She doesn't have any, really. And she has no tolerance at all. So therefore, any kind of low-level drugs could actually harm her to a great degree. So, but there's no drug usage in this. There's nothing. So that doesn't really play a factor. And then you've also got her depression. You got somebody that's essentially, the Karen type archetype character here, who's going to be judgmental of all this, of whatever she can find on her. But is that really going to affect Batwoman? Not really. She's going to shrug a lot of it off. So, and then you've got her training. So let's just look at her strength first. Punch through stone. That's already a huge feat, and more than comparable. Capable of staggering both Bane and Killer Croc. Characters who can tank hits from guys like General Zod, a Kryptonian under the Yellow Sun, and she staggers them. Strength-wise, she's got this single-handedly, no problem. As for her durability, she's tanked full-force blows from Bane and Killer Croc. Once again, this is more than enough. She's able to tank more than... And this is without even just basically receiving cuts and bruises. Somebody that can really punch a couple 100 pounds, okay. That's nothing compared to lifting tons, lifting cars. So durability goes to Batwoman. Don't even have to break the numbers down. As for her speed and agility, she's far exceeding that of the average human female. So she's got her on there. And extremely conservative woman, chances of being able to hit her or hit Batwoman is slim to none. So let's break another feat down real quick. Next one, you got her martial prowess. Well, martial prowess, her martial arts skills are far exceeding extremely conservative woman. Honestly, I'm being very serious. I honestly thought there was more to extremely conservative woman when I set this match up. But no, not even close on fighting skill. Ingenuity, well, this is where stealth comes in handy. Extremely conservative woman she was snuck up on by Black Knave, who is terrible at sneaking. And then you got Batwoman, who's able to sneak up on Batman. That's enough said. That's literally enough said. As for her gadgets, well, she's actually got gadgets versus barely any. So you pick your gadget here, you pick your poison. Batwoman's got the edge. She could literally bring just the grapple gun. It's more than enough. Because now she can use that to a form of lethality because, well, she's an expert marksman. So now the grapple gun becomes incredibly lethal. Now that becomes a problem. So, if it hasn't become overtly obvious here, Batwoman wins this. And it's not even a question of when, where, why, how, what scenarios would it take for Batwoman to lose. There's no scenario. Not even a single scenario, really. We're talking deathbed Batwoman versus fully energized, ready to go, extremely conservative woman. Batwoman still wins this. So you take away her gadgets, you can break some bones, Batwoman still wins. There's not a single instance where extremely conservative women are on top. So, what do you guys think? Did you guys think I was right? Wrong? Do you think it was wrong that I put this match together? Now, like I said, I explained myself on that one. Honestly, I thought there was more to it. So, but as for Monday's big battle, it's going to be between another one of my characters, Steam Tech, from the Crowverse, versus Gear from, yet again, DC Universe. We're talking the tech junkies themselves, duking it out. You got a guy with a couple prosthetics, and you got a guy who's got powers that involve technology. At least I believe he has powers. Either way, he's a gadgeteer. Regardless, you have gadgeteer against gadgeteer. So, I'm still learning about Gear, so keep that in mind. Gear is interesting. But that's Monday's fight. It's between two tech giants. And we're not talking like the leaders of the tech industry today. No. We're talking tech geniuses from the comic universes. So who comes out on top of this when it comes to tech versus tech? You guys will have to find out on Monday. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys Monday night, same time at 9 p.m.